Okay, good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all. You are here for the non-operating and capital projects request for applications funding workshop. We appreciate you guys coming in or tuning in on YouTube. This is just a reminder that you cannot ask questions in YouTube. It's a recording only. And we're very sorry for everyone impacted by Hurricane Helene. We know that everyone's going through a lot right now, so that's why we did record it as well. So today we're going to do the introduction, and then we're going to go through the funding criteria and history and the timeline. I'm going to be presenting on that through the award and agreement. Then we're going to do IT best practices. That'll be Shannon, who'll be coming up and presenting at that time. And then we're going to take maybe a 5-minute break so everybody can write down any questions that they may have, and you can write them while we're in the presentation. We're going to collect them, and then we'll answer them. Just as a reminder, any answers that we are providing today are not official. The official responses will be part of the questions and answers document that's posted on our website. Sorry, I'm having.
Oh, sorry, that's me. I was moving the mouse. I apologize.
Okay, the purpose of our funding workshop is for JWB to provide an overview of the RFA requirements to increase in understanding. This is also an opportunity for applicants to ask JWB questions about specific parts of the solicitation and permits JWB the opportunity to determine if there are any gaps or corrections that need to be made to the RFA. Important notes, oral statements or responses will not amend the RFA. Suggestions or modifications may be included as an addendum, and there are a lot of documents out at the front. If you all had a chance to grab them, we had 4 addendums, many of them changing our funding workshop date. And written questions and responses from today and any resulting addendum will be posted on the website. The objective of the RFA. This is to make a one-time only investment in capacity building projects for 501c3 organizations that are currently receiving program funding from JWB. It also enhances long-term operational effectiveness and efficiency. And you'll see those questions in the project description and statement of needs, so that's where you're going to want to put that information. Supports capital projects of new acquisition or replacement of renovation of deteriorated capital assets. Comparison between fiscal year 24 and 25. In fiscal year 24, we had availability of $2.9 million. This year, we have funding available of $5.1 million. Request minimums for both fiscal year 24 and 25 have both been $10,000 per project. The request maximum for fiscal year 24 for each project was for the entire application was $200,000. This year's RFA maximum is $350,000 per application. Fiscal year 24 had a max of 2 projects, and that has been increased in this solicitation to 3 projects per agency. So the types of projects that were awarded in fiscal year 24 were, the majority were facility, then technology, and then facility, security, technology. Some of the kind of hybrid types of projects were all at 3%, including transportation. So the qualifications, this is what you must have to qualify, and that is receive program funding from JWB. You must be a 501c3 organization at the time of the application, and you cannot be on a JWB corrective action plan or performance improvement plan from the time of submission through award. So we wanted to give some ideas of what an eligible capital project request may look like. An application submission, each agency may submit one application. The request can be up to 3 projects. The projects must be for a JWB-funded program. And again, you're going to see some of those questions in regards to the program and impact in the return on investment questions in the narrative. Requests must be a minimum of $10,000, so every project must be at least $10,000 and must not exceed $350,000 total. Eligible projects must be related items purchased to acquire or improve a long-term asset. They must be non-recurring and have a useful life of greater than 1 year. Training costs are eligible as long as they're associated with the capital purchase. Examples of the eligible projects are participant management systems. This would be like software subscription fee. That would be the initial cost only. The professional services related to customizing that software, implementation costs, and training related to the software. So that another project could be a facility repair or enhancement, which would be like floor replacement and flooring. Computer lab or program participants, for program participants, and that would be like computers and furniture and labor for setup of the equipment. Eligible requests, JWB encourages capital IT requests for participant management systems to upload data directly to JWB or data systems like donor databases that can expand, diversify, and manage the revenue sources. Also requests that enable coordinated, rapid recovery from a disaster and or reduces the agency's business risk exposure. Ineligible expenses. That would be exclusively for a JWB, non-JWB funded program. Operating costs, which would be staff development, office and classroom supplies, training not associated with the capital purchase, equipment lease or rental, space rental, those are examples that would not be eligible. Items that are unrelated to one another in a project. Built-in costs for potential project overruns. There is the exception of certain projects such as construction and renovation. Expenses budgeted to be paid for by other available sources of revenue. JWB is exempt from paying federal excise tax and the state of Florida sales taxes. Purchasing requirements. That would be on Form 4. There's quotation requirements. Any items that exceed $5,000 require 3 current quotes, and that's if the altogether it's over $5,000. So if you buy 10 or 11 of something that's, anyway, if all the items exceed $5,000, and the quote must be after 9/3/2024. The items must be summarized on Form 4, vendor quote summary form. Written quotations must be attached to Form 4. There are sole source justifications. If only one source is available, you need to attach the quote and the justification to that Form 4. Insufficient quotations. If you're unable to get 3 quotes, we've seen it where you've called and you've called and you've tried to get someone to come out and give you 3 quotes and you're unable to get them because they won't come out. That would be one of the examples. You would attach the procured quotes and then a written explanation on why you weren't able to procure 3 quotes. See the questions in return on investment. There's questions in regards to purchasing. Minimum contract terms and conditions. We have the contract amendment terms that are provided in attachment 2 in the sample contract amendment. Exceptions to terms must be identified and noted in Form 5. Absence of exception implies that you accepted our terms and conditions, and exceptions may be considered during the selection process. Terms that are not applicable, identify in Form 5. So this is a new piece of our capital RFA, which is the Land Use Restriction Agreement. This may be required for projects on owned or leased property and is subject to JWB board approval. Land use restriction agreements, may require signing of attachment 3. Compliance indication, indicate compliance or exception via special condition form. So if you have an issue with the land use agreement piece, please make sure that you put that on form 5. That's where it belongs. Depreciation of assets schedule, attach a schedule for JWB to consider, and make sure, it may be included in the agreement. Advance requests, this is another piece that is definitely new to the RFA. JWB provides funding on a cost reimbursement and cost reimbursement basis. However, advance requests may be considered subject to approved policy on non-operating capital projects RFA advances. There's an advance request form that's now included in the RFA, which is Form 6, non-operating and capital projects advance request form. This must be completed and submitted with detailed project draw schedule for the project amount requested by JWB that identifies the expected monthly expenditures. Advance amount will be limited to the highest expected monthly expenditure. So here is our timeline. It's our updated timeline. We released the RFA on September 3rd. Today was our rescheduled optional funding workshop. An important date is October 8th, which is the deadline of the receipt of questions. So you'll all be able to ask questions today, but you can ask questions all the way up to noon on October 8th. On October 11th, we are going to post the final written responses to the questions, and that'll be posted on our website only. On 10/16 is our technical assistance by appointment. So if you want to do a technical assistance appointment where we review for required documents, you can email me and we can set up that appointment. The application is due on October 22nd by noon. We have this in red, we have it underlined. Please, please, please ensure that you submit it on time. Even 5 minutes late will make it so that your application is ineligible. We've had to do that before. It breaks our hearts, it breaks yours. So please, you can turn it in early. So please just keep an eye on that date and time. December 9th and 16th are evaluation committee meetings. Those are open to the public. You all are invited to attend. This is where the evaluation committee discusses the applications and the scores. It's a really good kind of debrief if you want to be there to also hear, the strengths and weaknesses of your application. October 18th is when we're going to announce intent to award, with board action to award on January 16th and posting the award online on January 17th. February 1st is when we will execute the amendments, and that'll be with your program consultant. Application submission, again, I'll say it a million times, October 22nd by noon. Late submissions will not be considered. Delivery of the applications must be submitted via email to rfp@jwbpinellas.org. Please make the subject line capital RFA and your name. Maximum email size is 10 megabytes. So what we like to say is please try and make sure that you are able to submit a little bit earlier, because it only accepts, our email only accepts 10 megabytes. If you want to cut it into 20 different documents and send them individually, that's fine. I'm going to respond to each and every one of your emails. If you could maybe number them for me so that I can see if I only got, you say 1 of 4, and I don't have 3, I'm going to email you and say I'm missing number 3. But you can turn them in as many as you need to, and I'm going to put them back on the other side. So it's going to look like just one application. So, and the 10 megabytes is not only the attachment, it includes anything that's in your email. So just wanting to let you all know this sometimes can be a challenge when you're submitting your applications. And you can always call me. I have my contact information in the RFA, and we'll have it on the PowerPoint as well. Email submission requirements. You're going to have the capital RFA application, and then you're going to have Form 3, which is an Excel budget. Form 4 is going to be separate with the vendor quote summary and for project 1, 2 if applicable, 3 if applicable, and we've got the assembly instructions. They're a little bit different this year. Signed addendum if issued. We all know we have 4 of them, so please put all of the addendums in there. Form 1, which is the application signature form, signed. Please look at the instructions in regards to who's authorized to sign your application signature form. Table of contents. Form 2, which is the narrative, and that includes photos, drawings, maps, anything that supports your project that will give the evaluation committee any better idea and understanding of your project. Proposed depreciation schedule, and see section 1.8 for that, and that's only if that's applicable. Copy of your lease agreement, see Form 2, and that is number 2, and again, that's only if it's applicable to your project. And construction spend rate schedule, again, see Form 2, and that's question number 6, but again, that's only if it's applicable. Then you'll have Form 2 and all of those documents, if applicable, for Project 2 or Project 3, whatever is applicable to you. Form 5, which is the contract amendment, terms and conditions compliance checklist. Form 6, which is the non-operating capital projects advance request, and a detailed project draw schedule, again, if that's applicable. And then Form 6 for each project thereafter, if applicable. So Form 3 is the budget. We just kind of gave you a little rundown of what it could look like. This is Lorraine Inc. is the agency. So they have project 1 is a computer lab. And so we have the project, sorry, if you didn't hear me, I have Form 3 up, and the agency name is Laura Inc. This is for a computer lab. Again, this is just an example where they have the different items, how many of the items, the unit price, and then the amount requested by JWB, and then amount requested by other sources, because you may have other sources for your project. We do want to see how much the project is in total, so please include anything that's in kind or has other sources of revenue. And then the total cost, and then the name of the other revenue sources, and then the vendor selected, which should match your Form 4, which is your vendor quote summary form. So we want to make sure you include all your project, all your items in your project. For example, include warranties, keyboards, wires, even if it'll be paid by another funding source. Don't forget to consider implementation costs for the project when developing your budget. Here's Form 4 vendor quote summary form. This agency is Lorraine Hayes, as I used my name for all of the agencies here. So we have updated the form a little bit. So does your project contain items of over $5,000? That way, if you have a project where nothing includes anything over $5,000, you can check no and just attach it. If it does, you put yes and you keep going down where it has the instructions. We filled it out just as an example of where you could see what type of, what is the project item, the different vendor names and the costs, and then the comments. So, so for the project cost requirements, only include items of a total cost of $5,000. Again, if you have 6 items that are $1,000 a piece, they're the same item, those are going to need to be on that Form 6. You need to attach 3 written quotes or written justification for a sole source or insufficient quotes. Order the quote by project items, please, and check mark the selected vendor. Form 5, the contract amendment terms and conditions compliance checklist. Compliance options for applicants. Comply, which means you fully understand and are in agreement. Exception, you must fully explain that in Form 5. Not comply, you must explain fully as well. And not applicable, which means that special condition doesn't apply to your projects. Instructions for applicants, mark the appropriate column for each term and condition, and refer to attachment 2 for details. So Form 6 is the non-operating and capital projects advanced request form. This is a new form from our other capital RFAs. Advance requirements. Does your agency require an advance to complete the project? The options are yes or no. If no, you can stop there and then just attach it. If an advance amount is needed and you check yes, you need to specify the advance amount required. Limited, and again, it's limited to the highest expected monthly expenditure that's going to show up on your project draw schedule. You must attach the detailed project draw schedule that identifies the expected monthly expenditures, and you must agree to comply with special condition number 8 on Form 5. Minimum criteria. This is what you all have to have in order to have your application move forward for review from the evaluation committee. The application must be submitted by the due date and time. Applicant currently receives JWB program funding, and the application is for the benefit of a JWB funded program. The applicant cannot be on a corrective action or a performance improvement plan, must be an IRS 501c3 designation at the time of submission. You must have it signed by an authorized officer. Again, that's going to be in the RFA instructions. And the capital project request must be a minimum of $10,000 per project, and the total cannot exceed $350,000. Now, the total is how much you're requesting from JWB, not the total amount if you have other sources of revenue. So just to clarify, it's $350,000 from JWB. So our evaluation criteria that the evaluation committee uses when reviewing your applications and your projects is the highest is for statement of need, which is 40%, project description, and return on investment are both at 30%. And let me go back here. If you notice in the project narrative, each of the sections of questions are directly tied to each of them. That doesn't mean that the team can't consider some of the other answers in their evaluation for their criteria, but the majority is based off the questions that are in that section. So there's a section in the narrative that says statement of need, another section of questions that say project description, another section that says return on investment. So please make sure that you review those questions and you fully answer the questions, because there are some questions that have multiple questions within it. You must have an average score of 65 or above to be considered. Geographic distribution is considered. A high evaluation score does not guarantee that an applicant will be funded. Applicants self-identify on Form 1, which programs their projects benefit and whether the program serves North, Mid, South, or is countywide. The evaluation committee makes funding recommendations to the board for approval. And this is the attachment that's in the RFA, and this is what we're using for you all to self-identify where your project participants are. Attachment 5, that's our round 1 evaluation form. The evaluation committee reviews your applications independently. And then the committee meets, and that was, I believe, 12-9 and 12-16. Well, that's when the committee meets to discuss They're independent reviews. Points are awarded based off response quality. The point ranges are from 1, that's unacceptable, 2, partially meets, 3, meets with moderate gaps, 4, meets with minor gaps, and 5, meets or exceeds the requirements. Now, if you look down at the point ranges, it'll actually have definitions, and that's what our team uses when reviewing it for the different point ranges. Award. JWB's intent is to award up to $5.1 million. There is multiple awards anticipated, and the award amounts may differ from what has been requested based upon the dollars available. Also, if we find that something that was requested is ineligible, that's another example of where you might see the amount differ from what was requested. Notice of intent to award will be posted on JWB's website within 2 business days after the evaluation committee decides. Notice of award is posted on JWB's website and emailed to applicants within 2 business days after the board decision. The agreement amendment is initiated by JWB Senior Program Consultants. So once the award is given, it's going to be the your senior program consultant that's going to be reaching out to you about those amendments. It specifies the maximum funds and the purpose, and the funds must be spent and the project completed by the termination date. Extended time frame. So extensions may be granted to fiscal year 26. If construction spend rate schedule is attached in response to question 6, showing project cannot be completed by September 30th, 2025. Important points. All communication must come to me. I am your central point of contact. Please don't reach out to your senior program consultants. They're going to refer you back to me. I'm the one that can answer your questions. Ensure that you read and respond to all questions and requirements of the RFA. If you've not asked for the RFA, please do so. There is all the information you need is in there. And the addendums, there are addendums right now. They are posted on our website on the funding opportunities page. Attachment 4, application checklist, is provided in the RFA to assist you. You don't attach that. We just put it in there so that you all have something. I love checking things off a list, so that's your little checklist that you all can use for your, to help you as you're going through and completing your application. Do not exceed 6-page limit for each project for Form 2 narrative. And there is my contact information. And again, this PowerPoint is posted on our website under the non-operating and capital funding solicitation on that page. If you click on the light box, there's all our amendments, the updated questions and responses, and it has this PowerPoint as well for you all. And this is recorded, so you can come back and watch me or listen to me on YouTube again, so you can go back and watch it. And there's all my contact information. There is the website where you would go for the questions and responses and any addendum. So then Shannon's going to come up and do the IT best practices, and then we're going to take about a 5-minute break. You all can run to the restroom. Please write down any questions you may have, and then please return them to me, and we'll gather them together and answer those questions. Okay, and here's Shannon.
Hi, I am Shannon Phillips, and I am the IT software support analyst, here to assist in the general IT guidelines that we typically tell you guys for the capital funding RFA. So first, we're going to talk about the length of how long technology is typically good for. So computer will be about 3 to 5 years. Printer and copier, 8 years. On the copier, sometimes that also is determined by a lease contract, and there are not leases allowed for this RFP. Scanner, also 8 years, as well as TVs and projectors. A Wi-Fi device, like a little MiFi or something, or a phone, sometimes you can get those through your vendor, your like a wireless carrier for free, and you just have to pay for the service. Servers are 5 years, and iPads are 3 to 5 years, and we do recommend that if you're getting an iPad to get a cover for it. Any type of like AV filming equipment, that would be about 5 years as well. Things that you might want to consider when you're getting your technology, is it compatible with the other technology that you're already using? Does it meet the needs of your agency? And are there any security risk when you're getting that technology or implementing it? Is there a warranty? When does the manufacturer stop supporting it? And what is the end of life? Windows. Anything that's not compatible with Windows 10 or higher should be replaced. Monitors. Typically, we use them until they die, or the size or the quality of the picture is no longer good. But in the past, I've noticed, doing this for 19 years, it's about 8 years they're typically good for, unless you have a fluke on one of them. When purchasing your hardware or software, make sure that it includes warranties. We suggest a minimum of 3 years. Make sure that there is a plan for implementation, installation and configuration, and support. Who's going to support that? How often? When? And just mentioned that. Cloud computing is a practice of using a network of remote servers hosted to the internet to store, manage, and process data rather than a local server or a personal computer. It typically does not require any hardware. So this can include the infrastructure, the platform, and application layers. Software as a service. That is a software licensing and delivery model in which the software is licensed on a subscription basis and is centrally hosted. It is sometimes referred to as an on-demand software. The SaaS is typically assessed by users using a thin client or a web browser. So SAS versus the equipment being on-prem, there's usually licensing, and that's per user. Sometimes you pay as you go, so you only pay for what it is you're using. And then there's provisioning. Pay for several concurrent or named licenses. Microsoft Office 365. These are subscription-based services for Office products such as Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook. Typically, TechSoup offers not-for-profit agencies as a cheap alternative for these subscriptions. It's a good option for companies because updates are performed by Microsoft, and file sharing and backups can be performed easily with an on-site server. It's also a good option to implement company email using the Microsoft Office products. Personal emails should not be used. We don't recommend that. Databases. Access is not a good solution for enterprise-level database, and avoid entry into multiple systems is a good practice when possible. Typically, we would say that try to get something that works with Apricot, but we're not using that anymore. We're going to Flex, and you can reach out to the WebAuthor Flex Corporation if you're looking into something similar to that. But all of our data and grants management is now in the Flex system. Consultants are generally hourly consulting rates. And so when you're looking for that, you want to maybe get a few options to make sure that your quote that you're getting is consistent with the rates of the other quotes, corporations within the Tampa Bay area. That's all I have for you. Any other IT questions, if you could just give them to Laura, and then our CIO, Laura Peel, or Melissa Orcus, our Associate Manager of IT, will respond to those when she sends out all the other answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. And I know there's actually more people than I expected here, so not everybody got a copy of the documents. We're at the front. So we are printing those out, and we will be producing them to you. So I will put them back on the front for anybody that wants to go and pick them up. Just give me a couple of minutes. We're going to take a break. Why don't we go till 10:15? Everyone can run to the restroom, provide me their questions, and we'll come back at 10:15 and start the questions and answers part of the meeting. Thank you. This is just an update. We're going to take 5 more minutes before we do the questions and answers, so you all have 5 more minutes. We'll be back at 10:20 to answer questions. Okay, we're going to start our questions and answers. Again, this is just preliminary responses. The official responses to the questions will be posted on the website, and Diana's going to be answering your questions. And for those waiting for your forms, I will have them on the front as soon as they're printed.
Hello. In case we started something new this year, this is our first time where in the past, we've put out the responses to our questions all at once, but now we're posting the responses as we receive them. So on the website, we already have, and this is what Laura has also printed out, we've gotten 8 questions to date, and the responses are already up there. And so I'm going to try to, I'll do my best to answer these questions today, but, as Laura said, the official response will be in writing. And some of these might take a little longer for us to answer, but we'll try, we may even put out responses in batches. If we can get responses right away to some, we might post those. So if you don't see either a written response to the question that you posed right away, don't worry. It might just be that we need some more input, and we will definitely have the responses to all questions up by October 11th. So that's, you don't have to, after that time, you don't need to look to the website to look for any further questions and responses. So let me start, and I might on some of these have to, need some help with handwriting and ask you to help me with interpreting some of these, and then I'll just restate the question for those that are listening at home. So, let's see, Gulf Coast Jewish Family Services is considering applying for laptops and an emergency pager system. Would this be considered one project or two? I'm not sure yet at this time. I mean, look back definitely for a written response. We have had, and we even have, I think a good place to look, or where this is addressed in the RFA, is on page 2. Where we have examples of what are not considered related items for one project, like technology and a recreation project. So if you've got IT equipment and playground equipment, that's pretty clear. That's not one project. But I think even going back in, maybe it's like slide 3, we had some examples even from years past. I think one of them was a facility and security. And so we have had, we have considered as one project if someone was making improvements to their facility, and it, it also included some security cameras. Maybe it's a little further, maybe slide 4 or 5. There we go. Nope, sorry, 6. There we go. So, technology and facility, or facility and security. So, I mean, if you see it as really, one project, there's a benefit for these two things. They are related. They need to occur together. We're going to look for you in the RFA. I think in what you're submitting, I think it's question 1. Where you're providing a description of the project, that you're making it clear for the evaluation committee to understand how these things really are related. If you think it makes more sense to, or if we get it and to us it does not make sense to be one project, we're going to be looking to make sure you don't have more than 3 projects, because if, let's say you submitted requests for 3 different projects and we thought that one of those shouldn't be combined, then Laura would reach out to you, and we might, you're going to have to remove one of the projects so that we're not considering more than 3. But we're really going to just be looking to you mostly to make that case in your response to question 1, and wait for the official response too. Got some more questions coming up. And then it was, would this project be considered statewide for the entire agency, or divide into north, central, and south depending on the funded programs? Let me just clarify, did you mean statewide or countywide? You meant statewide? Not sure where the person is. Countywide? Okay. I mean, countywide, yes. So when you're checking the or filling in if this, which area this project impacts. We're really looking like for your participants. I mean, if you serve participants just in North County, then, mark off that. If you've got participants throughout the county, then mark countywide. Yeah, so depending on where your participants are, that's where you would indicate if it's countywide or which area. Will the proposed project be a part, or could the proposed project be a part of a larger project? And if my answer isn't what you're looking for, or I didn't, I'm not getting the question right, then let me know. Yes, it could be part of a larger project, and I think where Laura was showing, like we're looking for the total cost, you might have funding from other sources. So, and the person that asked the question, did you want to provide any further context?
Is a construction of the facility right now, and since it's opportunity available, they can build some sort of building for services that they don't project that will be inside. Will it be allowed?
Yeah. So you're asking if it's part of an existing project, I guess that's already underway? So I think, and we do have a question that came in that's kind of related to this, and I'm going to go, let's see, where did I put my questions? Okay, that we already posted a response to, and I'm going to refer to that. It's question 4. So if the project is already underway, one of the things in JDB's board policy, section 3.4, is that we won't consider funding for expenses that are budgeted to be paid for by other available sources of revenue. So if the project was already started, you already have other sources of revenue for it, they can't be shifted. JDB would not consider that as eligible. And if it's already underway, another thing to consider is the agreements for this RFA aren't going to be executed until February 1st of 2025. And so, and then the receipt of that fully executed agreement is going to serve as your notice to proceed with services. So if you already have funding available and the project's already underway, then I would say that wouldn't be eligible. Does that answer the question, or?
Yes, it is understandable. I was asking from the point of view if I want to modify the project to add a different part and different room with different equipment to do something. Will that be?
Yeah, so the question then is if you have an existing project underway and now you want to enhance the scope of that project because this funding source is available, then I would say yes. If it's, a new project, you're getting quotes to expand on something that's already existing, then yes, that would be eligible. Mm-hmm. And then the next question was, will the look-back period allow for purchases?
Sometimes, especially right now, who knows where we will be with this strike, sometimes we have to order supplies and equipment well in advance, like for some medical equipment right now it's 6 months.
So are you talking, referring to the current quote, like if the quote was obtained prior to September 3rd?
We have been quote prior to September 7th.
Okay, so we did have a question related to actually I think it's that same question number 4. So, I mean, we do ask for the quotes to be current. If they're not current, then attached to Form 4, we would be looking for you to attach a written explanation explaining the reason that 3 quotes weren't able to be procured. So if it's a legitimate reason, the quotes, you have reason to believe that they're still valid quotes, then that would be fine. We would just be looking for an explanation. But of course, what the current concern that we would have is that if they're not current quotes, are they really going to be valid? Has the cost increased? And so, that by the time you go to do the purchase, if the vendor is going to give you a different price, you might need to address how you're going to plan to manage those increased costs if the quotes would be expected to go up.
You mentioned the contract will be ratified somewhere in January,
February 1st.
February 1st, so if we have to actually complete the purchase in December, again, because of advance order request for a specific type of equipment, will that be allowed?
Well, I think it would kind of go back to if you are, the question is if you've already purchased it before the contract is in place. I mean, one, there's a risk if you weren't awarded, then you wouldn't have this funding source available, so if you're purchasing it in advance, and you do have another funding source available, then it really kind of goes back to that first response that we're not going to consider funding for expenses budgeted to be paid for by an available source of revenue. So I think the answer is probably no, because there's no guarantee you're going to get this award, and so you'll have to have another source of funding available, which then would make it ineligible. Let's see, and then the third question was, how can we document purchases where 3 quotes aren't possible? And I think it's just same answer that if there's only one source available, there's only one vendor available, then we just look for a written justification, explaining that no one else can provide this service, or let's say you put out maybe there's multiple vendors, and especially in light of the recent storm, there might be lots of vendors available, but maybe only 2 return your call because they're busy, with other people that have been experienced storm damage. Then you would explain that in your written justification that we reached out to all these vendors, only this 1 or 2 came out and quoted us, and just provide that explanation. Okay, great. Let's see. Next one is, if your project has 40% other revenue source and 60% from JWB funding, how would the advance be handled? And that's where our board in September just adopted this new policy on advances, and I actually don't think our board policy hasn't even been updated yet on our website, so we're pulling this from the but we're going to get this updated soon. But we're pulling this from the September board meeting, and I'm going to need my glasses to read this. See, is there any way to make this bigger? Sure. Okay, thank you. Okay, and let's scroll down a little till we get to number B, and all of number B. So we now have this policy on advances just related to this procurement, and I do believe it's just for your JWB award. The short answer is it would just be for the part of the project that you were awarded from JWB. And then it says sample contract amendment, attachment 2 lists items 1 through 4 on page 20 and items 1 through 5 on page 21. That's just not a question, just okay.
It's an observation. So the 4 and 5 or whatever list items 1 through 9. So it's a numbering thing that would throw people.
Yes, so the observation was on Form 5, which is our contract amendment terms and conditions compliance checklist. And actually, if you're able to pull up the RFA, it's on page 17. And yes, so there are 4 special conditions that, as Lynn said, are on page 20 that apply to everybody. That's no matter what their request is for. And then there are some, the remaining 5 special conditions that are only if applicable. So these are ones where you might be selecting on the checklist that it's, not applicable to you. It might be depending on if you're asking for a project that's a facility improvement to lease or owned property. But if you're asking for transportation or, a new vehicle, then, that wouldn't apply to you. But yeah, so it covers 2 pages. So there's the initial 4 special conditions, and then there's 5 special conditions that are if applicable. But on Form 5, we list them 1 through 9. So in total, 9 special conditions to respond to. Okay, I think that covered that question. Sure. Okay, can you explain when a land use restriction would come into play? And will you require this agreement for property improvements? And if so, would signage count? So a land use restriction is going to come into play if you're requesting an improvement to an owned or leased property. So yes, to the second question, will you require it for property improvements? Yes, it will. We will consider exceptions if you have something that you identify on here where there's a reason you think this shouldn't or couldn't apply. We would want you to include that in your application. It's not automatic that it's going to be required. It is subject to our board approval. So if you are requesting a project that's for a facility improvement for owned or leased property, we're going to note that when we take it to our board to review and approve. And then as part of their action, when they approve the awards, they will also indicate whether or not they are going to require that land use restriction agreement. And would signage count? Let me get back to you on that. Not sure yet. This is our first time doing this, so I just want to double check. But good question. Okay, we are concerned contractors for items like roofs or air conditioning will be hard to find after the hurricane. Will any consideration be given if we cannot get 3 bids? Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's a valid concern. And I think in the example I provided before that if, there are contractors out there and you've reached out to them and they're not getting back to you, then just put together a written justification and include it as an attachment to your form. And then the next question was, will generators be considered for the capital grant? Yes, that's an eligible expense that can be considered. We have several buildings. Is there a threshold for the number of JWB-funded staff in a building to be considered for the grant? So the answer to that is no. There's not a specific number of JWB-funded staff that have to be in the building. However, and this is, I'm looking to the answer that we have for question 7 that's already been answered, that when funding is requested for projects that also benefit other non-JWB funded programs, the evaluation criteria under return on investment includes consideration for what other funding sources were explored. So if we go to look in the RFA under return on investment, let's see. There's question number 13. Were other funding sources explored? If so, explain what funding sources were explored and what was the outcome. If no, why? It's not a pass-fail, but it's just something the evaluation committee is going to consider when they're scoring, that if JWB, your JWB-funded program is a small percent, will benefit at a small percent. They're going to look to see, well, what other options did you explore to bring in other funding streams? That's just going to be considered. It's not a pass-fail, so it just might get reflected in the scoring for that section. Okay, the next question is, where can the construction spend rate schedule be found? That's something that we're looking for either you or your contractor to provide. So if you have you've hired a contractor for a property, to do construction on your property, we're really looking to see what the expected completion schedule is. And this is really for the purpose of if you don't think you're going to be able to finish your project by 9/30 of this fiscal year. And as we showed before, we significantly increased the amount of funding that we have available this year to 5.1 million. And so we know that, and we've increased the max amount that you can ask for at 350,000. So we know with these larger projects, they may not be able to be finished by 9/30, which when we had these smaller grant amounts, I think agencies didn't have a problem getting them done by 9/30. But we are considering this because if you have a project and it's gonna cross over into the next fiscal year, we do still want you to apply, and we'll consider that, and we're just gonna have to figure out how much we're gonna award for fiscal year 25, and how much we're gonna award for fiscal year 26, but please do still apply. But we're just gonna look for confirmation from you or your contractor that kind of what their expected completion date is going to be, that it is gonna cross over into next fiscal year. And again, it's just for the purpose of us figuring out how much to award in the current year versus the next year. Next question is, funding available to organizations currently receiving funding. Is there an opportunity for non-funded programs? I would say not. We have done that in years past, but in this year, the solicitation, it is limited just to organizations that are receiving funding from JDB, and even if they are receiving funding, it has to be for a benefit of a JDB-funded program as well. Next question is, our club is considering doing facility updates at our Lemon Street preschool. Would kitchen renovations and interior exterior paint be considered one project? And I'm looking to Karen Bo just in case there's any nuances particular to the Quelly like as part of their, if it included capital. No, okay. Okay, so then this would be, something that's part of, appropriate for the capital RFA. So would kitchen renovations and interior, exterior paint be considered one project? Depends. I'm looking at exterior. Probably not. I think if you're doing a kitchen renovation and paint is included as part of that, yes. Go ahead.
So what we're doing is we're actually taking and we're doing, it hasn't been done for years and years and years. And so we're going to do exterior and interior paint throughout the building. And we're going to do a kitchen remodel or renovation because it's 28 years old. And so what we wanted to do is we're going to find another source for the classrooms that are not Quelly, and we have that source, revenue source, and then the JWB portion would be that percentage, the 60% that I asked in the previous question of the kitchen remodel and the painting. Now, some of the contractors have bid on both because it requires some nuances in scheduling and when the rooms are being moved around so that we're not disrupting operations. So we considered that as one project, but I wanted to know in advance, should we be breaking that up into two?
So I'm not going to restate that question because it's project details, but let me ask you, are you planning to request 3 projects?
No.
Then I would say if you're not planning to request 3, I think it would probably be it would probably be easier to just submit it as two different requests. If there's, if it's going to be maybe difficult to try to explain how these two things are connected, it's probably just safer to go ahead and split it up into, and then that way you, because you could, I mean, yes, you're having to close down the classrooms and which is one argument, but you could, I would imagine you could do one without having to do the other. Like you could do a kitchen remodel without having to repaint the interior and exterior. So it's probably better to submit it as two, and since it's not keeping you from applying for a third or a fourth. Yeah. I think that was the final question. And I'll just say again, please look for the written responses. They could change, or definitely on the ones where I'll have to get back to you, and just keep checking until you find your response, and which won't be any later than October 11th. And if you have any follow-up questions, please continue to submit those. We are going to take questions until October 8th at noon. So if you have any follow-up questions, just get them into us before then. Thank you.
Okay, and again, on the PowerPoint, which is uploaded on the website, has my contact information. You have any questions, having any technical problems with any of the forms, anything, just reach out to me. I'm always available. Anybody that didn't get the documents, they're at the front. And for anybody who's on YouTube, they are posted on the website. And that concludes our funding workshop. Thank you so much for attending or listening virtually.